G'day guys, Ryan from PowerTune here with a follow-up video on the GR Yaris. So everybody that watched the live stream would have seen what we did with the rodent GR Yaris, where we pushed it well beyond that 700 horsepower mark and actually had an engine failure. So we promised everybody on that video that we would show you all exactly what happened. We're not going to hide anything. We'll show you the fact that this is a standard motor. And we'll talk about what we're actually doing to improve that motor and what we're doing moving forward. So I'm here in our engine room today with Abdul. He's our engine builder, and I'm going to hand over to him and basically get him to run through everything that we've found so far with this engine, what we're going to do with the next engine, and where we're at with this whole sort of GR Yaris G16E platform. All right guys, so we're here with Abdul. He's our engine builder, and we're basically going to go over the GR Yaris block and talk about what failed, what we're doing in the new build, and I guess what everyone really wants to know is what the carnage was. So first of all, let's talk about the carnage, Abdul. So can you tell us what actually failed in this engine? What failed, or what does it look like failed, and what was the result of that failure?
So basically, on the dyno, as everyone saw when the blow up happened, initially we thought it was the conrod which let go, as we saw a hole on the block on the side. But after we took the motor out and we stripped it and stuff, and obviously examined everything, finding out what actually went wrong, and we came to a conclusion where we pretty much, from all the evidence we collected on the blow up, we saw that the actual thing which let go was the piston itself. The piston pretty much, on the GR Yaris says, when the pistons actually crack, they actually shatter.
Can you tell us, Abdul, is that different from a typical piston failure? Like what normally happens if you have a piston crack? What normally happens versus what happens with the GR Yaris pistons?
So basically, on the GR Yaris, the material which has been used, it doesn't break like other pistons. It pretty much shatters. So what you find in other engines, when the pistons crack, you can usually find that it just takes a chunk out, or the ringland breaks or something like that, but never seen as in like it just shatters. So this one pretty much shattered, which you can see in the sump, it's in a million pieces. So we came up with a conclusion which says that the piston actually let go, not the conrod, nor the little end of the conrod, and also the gudgeon pin is still intact. So that shows that that didn't let go as well.
So can you tell me more about effectively, after that piston's broken and shattered and smashed into a million pieces and ended up in the sump and wherever else, what then happened inside the engine for what we've seen, a whole heap of smoke obviously on the video, but can you show us, I guess, or tell me what actually happened then after the pistons effectively vanished? What happened?
So basically after the piston vanished, this rod, the conrod, has nowhere to guide it because it's guided with the piston, and when there's nothing there, this conrod can move anywhere. So while the engine was revving it to 8,000 RPM, I'd say, that conrod was just free flowing, so it was just going everywhere in the engine, took out half the block. It also took out the AC compressor and the radiator, and a little bit of damage on the intercooler. So obviously,
a lot of carnage.
A lot of carnage, yeah. So pretty much you needed another spare engine to start all over again.
Right, okay. So that is obviously what looks to be the weak part of the Yaris block. Can you tell me more about, I guess, the cylinder head? So a lot of people have talked about, closed decking a block, that type of thing. I can see, obviously, our block is using an open deck. What's the reason that we've got the open deck in there? And I mean, like we've said to everyone, this is a stock GR Yaris bottom end. This isn't a built motor. But why are you choosing to stay with an open deck block for the next build?
So basically, we're staying with the open deck because we haven't found any evidence of it causing any issues yet. Because you can usually see evidence of if the balls are actually moving around. We haven't found any evidence showing that it's happening. We can actually put the inserts in to close deck it. However, we're not sure if it's going to cause a negative effect on it.
Is that because you're taking material away to put that insert in? You're effectively modifying what, at the moment, we believe is a good working sealing solution?
Yeah. So there's two things. One is obviously you take a material away to actually put it in there. depending which closed deck system you choose. Another thing is the material which the actual inserts are made out of. Obviously, different materials have different expansion rates. So if you introduce a different material and the expansion rates are different, it might disturb the ball.
Right.
So it might actually cause issues instead of like fixing them. But at this stage, we are confident that stock ball can actually handle that much power.
So can you tell me more about, is this a factory head gasket, or have you installed an aftermarket head gasket and sealing system?
Yeah.
Like what has actually happened there? Because we know that with a factory engine, we've shown this in the past, that around sort of the 320 kilowatt mark, you typically will start to lift the head with a factory gasket and studs. So what was sort of done with this engine to ensure that that didn't happen at that power level?
Yeah. So basically what was done on this was pretty simple. All we used was a thinner cut ring gasket, and also we had some head studs. That's pretty much what we've done to keep the head down, and that's what we're going to reuse again as we know it's working.
Okay. So obviously now we know what's happened with the existing engine. We know what the failures were. Can you tell me, I guess, what is the next steps moving forward? Obviously, we've already built an engine to go back into the car, but can you tell me what we've actually upgraded and what we're still going to use from a standard Yaris engine?
Yep.
Because I'm sure there's a lot of people wondering, what's next for this car? Are we going to push harder? And what's actually been replaced? And can you tell me more about that?
So in the new motor we're building for Yaris, we pretty much upgrade the rods and pistons, and we're still keeping the stock crank. And the block is pretty much stock as well, just the home. We're keeping the same head gasket system, which we have proven that it works. Everything else, pretty much what we used in the previous motor, goes back together, except for the rods and pistons.
I guess I can now talk for, the tuning side of things. So what we do know with this engine is that we had a piston failure. And as Abdul has mentioned, with the GR Yaris, we know that these pistons and the piston material typically shatters like safety glass. We've seen it at very low power levels, and typically it's introduced with 98 fuels and a lot of pre-ignition or knock. So typically, if you have a Yaris engine that has knock problems, you'll break one of these pistons. It's very common, and it can happen at stock power levels. Now, with a good tune, an alcohol-based fuel that's very knock resistant, we can typically push much, much further and avoid that pre-ignition event, and we can make things last a lot longer. Now, we've possibly found the mechanical limitation of this piston, and the reason being is that we know the mixtures, we know all of the signs and everything that the engine was telling us on the dyno, everything was happy. So when we look at the spark plugs for this engine, we can tell straight away that the mixtures were good. We can tell that there was no pre-ignition, there was no other signs there was nothing going on inside the combustion chamber that was uncontrolled that caused this failure. So we believe now that this is the mechanical limitation of the GR Yaris motor. So we have a torque number now that we believe that the stock engine will make reliably, and we know obviously a torque number where it will break. So there's no reason for us, there would be no reason at, say, for example, 300 kilowatts to put in a forged rod and piston, unless, say, for example, you're running in an environment where there could be a lot of pre-ignition or potential for pre-ignition. So bad fuels, excessive heat, those types of things. So typically we would recommend for a race car application to use something like E85, which is much more knock resistant, and that sort of prevents these failures. So as we've mentioned, we've been pretty open about everything here. So if anyone has any further questions or queries, please feel free to shoot them through in the comments below, and we'll get back to you about pretty much anything. Like we've said, we're open about everything, and as soon as we have the car up and running again, we'll post the dyno video, because I can pretty much guarantee you we're going to push even harder.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Abdul, for your time today.
No problem.
And let's get back to it.